Hey everyone, it's iWuShock with another video of my information series. Today is Raid 2 Familiars. I mentioned in my last video that I would just be going over raid familiars that can be gotten in zones from Ash Vale and down. World Boss Tier 5 and down, and the second raid. So the cadence of videos will be more in line with the more recent in-game releases. Again, I won't be going over every familiar, but more so just the ones that you might want to keep an eye on when you're in that tier, and I will only mention ones that can be obtained from within that tier. So for example, Panguita has familiars used in tier 1, but you can't get them until much later, so they won't be mentioned until then. If you missed any of my other videos, check them out, as those familiars will carry you through this tier as well. Without any further ado, let's jump right into familiars found in Raid 2. I want to start with my favorite familiar, Wembo. He's fairly low health for early game, but otherwise has good stat spread, and his innate bonus is 300% critical damage. While you can't increase his chance to crit, that means that when he does crit, it's supercharged. He can heal you up in a single skill or nuke an enemy from orbit without breaking a sweat. Back before we had some of the overpowered familiars that we have today, the meta was Bobodom as a tank, Wembo as a healer or DPS, and then yourself as a DPS. Now that line is a little blurry since Bobo and Wembo aren't the easiest of grinds, but I still like this familiar so much. I even used him as a serviceable bait before Glarstos by loading damage reduction augments on him. You can get to nearly 50% damage reduction on him through perfect legendary augments. He won't be a forever familiar, but because of his abilities and versatility, if you're spending any time in these tiers, I would say go for him. Up next is Rolus. He's a familiar you can make in Raid 2 that also retains the aesthetic of the raid, which I think is pretty cool. He's a deflect tank with a built-in 13.5% deflect, which isn't too shabby. This can get boosted to 28.5% via augments, so if you max stable him and roll perfect legendaries, you can get that. 32% if you use mythics. That's a pretty huge investment though for a so-so familiar, but it is an option if you want. His stats aren't great, having too much speed and not enough power, and his skills leave a ton to be desired, but if you get lucky in the raid on Persuades, he might be worth looking at. Personally, I'd wait for the deflect tank that pops up in just a couple of tiers. Finally, there's Korgs, who's the last familiar to mention that can be fused when you're in Raid 2, and I'll be honest, he isn't worth the grind anymore. Back in the day, he was a top tier PvP DPS, but he's been outclassed so hard that he's not really worth your time. However, I do want to mention him because I talked about pings and quirk in earlier videos. If you happen to make both of these instead of saving Quirrell for other familiars, you're most of the way to Korgs. He's got built-in 30% dual strike along with some fairly high power attack closest. It means that with augments you can pretty consistently hit dual strike procs and then combine that with an offensive brain and you'll be dealing really high damage for tier 5. His recipe isn't too horrible but does require 3 epic familiars, which at this point in the game is a pretty steep price. He's a relic, but he has really cool art in my opinion if you care about that, and at this point in the game is really hard to outmatch without specific expedition familiars. I wouldn't spend any extra time on him though unless you already have most of the components to make him. Those are the 3 familiars that I wanted to mention from the second raid in the game. Unfortunately, none of the world boss familiars worth talking about used Raid 2 familiars within them. This was a super short and sweet video just to realign the videos with tier releases. Further videos will include the raid and the zone that's in them, making them much bigger. I definitely want to mention Wembo again just because he is my absolute favorite familiar in the game. It's mostly due to nostalgia, but he's super versatile and well worth the grind in my opinion. He can be a serviceable bait until you get a decent one, he can be your DPS, he can be a healer. He's kind of does it all except for tanking. Is there any familiar that you think I skipped over that should have been included? Which are your favorite familiars? Let me know in the comments below, and good luck on your grind for the best of the familiars. Another place for more information on these, help finding friends for the game, and even get free in-game items like Ultra Gores and XXL packs, check out the Discord linked on my profile. It's the official Bitverse Discord filled to the brim with players hyped about the whole Bit Heroes universe. There's weekly movie nights, weekly chances to play games with myself, other members of the community, and the community managers, as well as more knowledge about the game than you could shake a stick at. If you get lucky enough with the giveaways, you can play like a pay-to-win player without spending a single dime. I hope to see you there, and thanks for hanging out today. If you want to support me in getting better equipment or making more videos, check out the link on my channel, and don't forget to like this video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, subscribe if you want more, and I will see you in the next video.